You can tell when a ranger's lying. They look away when they say it. Nothing happened out there. But sometimes you'll see their eyes flick toward the tree line, like something's still watching them. It starts the same way every time. A missing hiker, a search team dispatched, the forest swallowing sound until even the radios start to cut out. Then, a whisper over the channel. We found something. And when they return, the official report says no contact, no evidence, case closed. But that's not the truth. At least, not according to hundreds of park rangers who finally had enough of keeping quiet. For years, these men and women, trained professionals, not ghost hunters or thrill seekers, have been ordered to stay silent about what they've seen. People vanishing without a trace, strange lights moving through restricted valleys, and something else out there, something that doesn't want to be found. They were told to sign non-disclosure agreements, to omit reports, to forget details. And for a while, they did. Until now. Because in the past few months, dozens of them have come forward. Retired rangers, whistleblowers, even active duty officers speaking anonymously. And what they're describing isn't random. It's coordinated. There are patterns. There are orders. And there's a silence so deep, it reaches all the way to Washington. Tonight, we're diving into the story the National Park Service doesn't want told. The one hidden in official memos, erased from search logs, and whispered between people who've seen too much. This isn't just about missing hikers. It's about why hundreds of rangers were told to keep their mouths shut, and what they're finally saying now. Base, this is Ranger 12. You're not going to believe what I just found.
Before we dive deeper, you have to understand who these people really are. Park rangers aren't storytellers or fame chasers. They're trained professionals. They're the ones who hike miles into nowhere to rescue lost campers, who fight wildfires at the edge of oxygen, who catalogue every broken branch and footprint like detectives of the wilderness. They know every trail, every sound, every shift in the forest's mood. So when they start saying something isn't right, people should listen. The US National Park Service employs over 20,000 staff across more than 400 parks and preserves. Every ranger goes through background checks, survival training, and strict communication protocols. Everything they see, everything they report goes through documentation, incident logs, radio transcripts, after-action reviews. But here's where things get strange. Over the past decade, hundreds of those records, search and rescue operations, wildlife encounters, even internal memos, have quietly disappeared from public databases. Entire case files marked restricted without explanation. And when journalists file Freedom of Information requests to retrieve them, the responses are identical. No records found. Some rangers claim they've been instructed not to discuss certain events at all. No interviews, no social media. If questioned, they're told to stick to approved language. Inside the service, it's called a confidentiality directive. Unofficially, it's a gag order. It's not just about national security or privacy. At least, that's what many believe. Because these orders aren't tied to classified projects or border patrol, they're connected to something happening deep inside the protected zones, areas closed to the public where even senior rangers need written clearance to enter. And here's the thing. When those who've worked the parks for decades start breaking silence, their stories line up. Same details, same instructions, same fear. So the question becomes, What are they seeing out there that's worth silencing hundreds of trained officers? And why is the government so determined to keep it buried? Because according to the rangers who've come forward, the truth is far more unsettling than anyone imagined. When you lay all these reports side by side, the pattern jumps out immediately. Different parks, different years, yet the incidents cluster together like coordinates on a hidden map. According to compiled ranger testimonies and recovered operation logs, these restricted encounters span 34 national parks across 12 states. Every one of them shares three things: dense forest coverage, limited radio reception, and proximity to deep cave systems. Take Yosemite, for example, the park with one of the highest rates of disappearances on record. Just a few miles from the main trail routes lie sections permanently closed to the public, marked as unstable geology. But according to internal ranger notes, those same areas are where the majority of strange radio events were logged. Coincidence? Maybe. But the data repeats itself in Yellowstone, Glacier, and Grand Canyon national parks. Locations separated by thousands of miles but connected by the same geological structures. When independent researchers mapped the missing persons data from public records, the result was chilling. Clusters forming near known cave entrances, old mining tunnels, and restricted wildlife zones. Regions rarely patrolled and often lacking satellite coverage. Even the timelines line up. Incidents spike in early summer, when the parks open in visitation peaks, and again just before winter closures. That's when most seasonal rangers are rotated out, meaning fewer witnesses and fresher teams less likely to question orders. And it's not just disappearances. Wildlife behavior reports in those areas show the same irregularities. Animals avoiding certain valleys entirely, tracks stopping mid-path, audible distress calls without visible source. Some scientists have tried to explain it through natural causes, magnetic anomalies, infrasound, or light distortion in humid air. But if that's all it is, why are the records for those regions consistently redacted or missing from system? Journalists who filed Freedom of Information Act requests to see those incident maps get the same reply every time. Request denied. Data unavailable due to ongoing investigation. But there's never any public follow-up, no press release, no case outcome. Just silence. And yet, the coordinates keep appearing. The same pattern again and again, from Oregon to Arkansas. Whatever's happening out there, it's not random. It's not isolated. And it's definitely not over. Because the more you look at the data, the more it feels like these incidents are being tracked, not erased. Someone's keeping score. We just don't know who. The first ranger to speak publicly was Michael J., a 10-year veteran out of Glacier National Park. He was part of a search team sent to locate a solo hiker who'd gone missing along the Highline Trail. No bad weather, no sign of struggle, just gone. Michael says it was close to midnight when his radio started crackling. Faint at first, then clearer. A woman's voice, crying, calling for help. They tracked the sound down into a ravine that rescue teams had already searched twice that day. When they reached the bottom, the signal vanished. No footprints, no body, no sound. He logged the encounter as a possible false transmission. But the next morning,
His supervisor pulled him aside and said, "You didn't hear anything. Do not include it in the report." When he pressed for a reason, he was told, "Higher channels want to avoid confusion in the record." 2 years later, a ranger from the Smoky Mountains, different state, different terrain, reported hearing the exact same voice during a separate search. Female, mid-30s, repeating the same phrase, "Please, don't leave me." His team also found nothing, and when he filed the report, it was quietly replaced with a standard "no trace located" summary. These stories might sound like coincidence, until you realize how many others echo the same pattern. Over 100 rangers have described identical anomalies: radio calls from unregistered frequencies, shadows moving against wind direction, voices mimicking team members who aren't there. One anonymous ranger from Yosemite told investigators he saw a figure standing near a tree, wearing a park uniform, hat and all. He waved. The figure didn't move. When he approached, it stepped behind the tree and vanished. His partner thought he'd imagined it, until they found the boot prints. The problem? They stopped in the middle of the clearing. No turn, no return path. Just gone. When he tried to file that under unexplained occurrence, his superior crossed it out and wrote, "Environmental misperception. Case closed." For years, these reports stayed buried inside internal databases. No public release, no press coverage, not even acknowledgement. But as more rangers retired, the silence began to break. They started comparing stories privately. Off-duty phone calls, encrypted chats, whistleblower forums. And that's when the scale became clear. These weren't isolated incidents. They were part of something coordinated, something systematically erased from the official record. Different parks, different years, same language in the cover-ups. False transmission, environmental misperception, operator fatigue. Dozens of people describing impossible events, and an agency that insists they never happened. And if that sounds too organized to be random, it probably is. It wasn't until 2019 that someone finally cracked the silence. A retired ranger from Colorado, who we'll call Evan, sent a folder to an independent journalist. Inside were scanned documents stamped "Internal Use Only" from the Western Regional Office of the National Park Service. The subject line read, "Confidentiality Protocol, Anomalous Reports." The memo instructed rangers to cease public discussion of unverified activity and to forward all unusual incident logs to a central division email, bypassing standard park databases. At the bottom of the page, in small type, a line read, "For media inquiries, no comment is authorized. Refer to Section 8 of the Employee Conduct Manual." That was the first breadcrumb. Proof that the silence wasn't a coincidence. It was policy. Other leaked correspondence, verified through matching header codes, showed this wasn't limited to one region. Offices from California, Montana, and even the East Coast used nearly identical wording. Same phrases, same formatting, same justification. Prevent undue panic. Limit misinformation spread. Maintain institutional trust. But the problem is, none of those unverified reports were ever made public in the first place. They weren't being limited. They were being removed. Whistleblowers describe being called into closed-door reviews after logging anything categorized as anomalous. There, they were told their accounts could jeopardize federal image integrity and were reminded of their non-disclosure agreements. One ranger claimed he was forced to sign a supplemental NDA, updated language that specifically forbade him from discussing unresolved search and rescue anomalies. He retired 6 months later. When questioned, the Park Service denied issuing gag orders, insisting the directives were standard protocol to ensure report accuracy. But internal training materials tell another story. A 2020 update to the Ranger Communication Handbook introduced a new section titled Information Control in Sensitive Environments. It specifically references unexpected discoveries, civilian exposure, and containment operations. Containment operations. That's not standard environmental language. That's crisis management terminology, usually used by FEMA or the Department of Defense. Even more telling, the same year those memos appeared, at least 12 rangers who had filed incident reports under anomalous event classifications either resigned or were reassigned to administrative posts. One whistleblower described it as career exile, quietly moved out of field work, stripped of clearance, told to stop asking questions. And yet, despite the denials, the leaked material keeps surfacing. Redacted emails, internal logs, voice memos recorded off-duty. They all point to a system that doesn't just dismiss strange reports. It intercepts them. Whatever these rangers encountered, someone at the top decided it was better hidden than explained. And the deeper you dig, the clearer it gets. This isn't about protecting the public. It's about protecting a secret. Because the question isn't just what they've been told to stay quiet about. It's why they were ordered to forget. When you put the puzzle together, the missing records, the silenced rangers, the recurring locations, it all points toward one question. Why? Why would the government spend so much effort suppressing stories about national parks? The simplest explanation is liability. Every year, thousands of people go missing in U.S. parks. Most are found, some aren't. If the public knew how many search operations end without closure, confidence in park safety could collapse overnight. It's easier and cheaper to say nothing. Just call it human error and move on. But that doesn't explain the details. The identical testimonies, the specific restricted zones, or the frequency of unexplained phenomena concentrated in geological hotspots. For that, some turn to science. There are areas in North America where magnetic anomalies interfere with compasses and radios. Infrasound, low-frequency vibrations produced by wind passing over irregular terrain, can cause panic, disorientation, even auditory hallucinations. Some physicists believe these natural conditions could explain the strange voices and vanishing signals. But here's the catch. These same explanations were tested decades ago. And according to the rangers who worked those investigations, the data didn't add up. Infrasound doesn't move footprints. Magnetic fields don't erase log files. Then there's the bureaucratic theory, that what's being hidden isn't paranormal at all, but classified. Deep wilderness has long been used for covert training exercises, communications testing, and even subterranean infrastructure. Those cave systems, those unstable zones, might be covering more than just rock. Military subcontractors have been known to use federal land leases to build underground research facilities, officially labeled as environmental monitoring stations. So maybe the silence isn't about monsters. It's about machines. Still, there's another explanation, one that's older than any of the parks themselves. Long before the National Park Service existed, indigenous nations told stories about places in the mountains where people vanished. Doorways that opened only for those who wandered too deep. They called them thin places, where the boundary between our world and something else wears thin. Some modern researchers call it geographic resonance, a theory suggesting certain landforms amplify electromagnetic or even dimensional energy. Science hasn't proven that. But the same ancient locations described in those legends line up with today's restricted coordinates almost perfectly. So what's really happening out there? Is it a natural phenomenon the government can't explain and doesn't want to admit? A classified project hidden in plain sight, or something entirely different? Something that's been here far longer than we have. One former ranger summed it up in a single line during his anonymous interview. They tell you it's for your own safety. But whose safety are they really protecting? Whatever the truth is, it's big enough to keep hundreds of rangers quiet for decades, and still powerful enough to make them afraid to speak even now.
For all the data and speculation, it's easy to forget that there are real people behind these stories. Rangers who've given decades of their lives to protect the parks and lost everything for telling the truth. Take Laura M., a field supervisor stationed at Sequoia National Park for nearly 15 years. By every standard, she was exemplary. 0 disciplinary marks, commendations for rescue operations, even awards for environmental research. Then, in 2021, everything changed. Her team responded to a call about a missing hiker, a young man last seen near a closed canyon trail, an area marked off for rock instability. When they reached the site, Laura says her tracker dog froze, wouldn't move. The forest was silent. No insects, no wind, nothing. They followed fresh footprints that led directly into a patch of bare ground and stopped. No drag marks, no broken twigs, just an ending, like the person had vanished mid-step. That night, Laura wrote her full report, complete with GPS coordinates and audio logs. The next morning, her supervisor called her in. The report was gone, deleted from the internal system. A replacement file had been uploaded under her name, same case ID, but rewritten as search concluded, subject not located. When she protested, she was told the deletion was for data consistency. 2 weeks later, she was reassigned to an administrative office 3 states away. Her clearance revoked, her ID badge voided. In her own words, "It wasn't the transfer that scared me. It was how fast it happened. Like they were waiting for me to speak." She never returned to field work. Her story only surfaced a year later when she contacted a journalist anonymously, sending screenshots of her old patrol logs, the timestamps matching other deleted cases across multiple parks. Stories like Laura's aren't rare anymore. They're multiplying. Every whistleblower that comes forward pays the same price: career, credibility, peace of mind. And yet, they keep talking. Because as one ranger put it, someone has to say it out loud before it disappears with us. Behind the mystery, behind the secrecy, there's a simple truth. This isn't about legends or conspiracy. It's about people who love the wild enough to risk everything to protect it, and are now risking even more to tell what they've seen.
Hundreds of rangers can't all be mistaken. Too many stories match, too many files disappear, too many voices fade into static the moment they start telling the truth. Maybe the silence really is about liability, the kind of paperwork that keeps the public calm and the headlines clean. Or maybe it's about something deeper, something inside those restricted zones that can't be explained, not yet. Because if even a fraction of these reports are real, then what's happening in America's wilderness isn't random.
it's orchestrated. These parks were meant to be places of peace, sanctuaries carved out from the noise of the world. But lately, they've become something else. A borderland between what we know and what we're not supposed to. Every ranger who breaks silence risks their career, their safety, their credibility. Yet they keep coming forward. Not for fame, not for attention, but because they believe the truth, whatever it is, belongs to everyone. So maybe the next time you drive past those wooden signs, the ones that say, "Welcome to the National Park," ask yourself, how much of that wilderness is really open, and how much of it is being kept from us? Because the forest keeps its secrets well, but the people who guard it are starting to talk. What do you think they're hiding?